everybody, welcome back to our channel, We're the Movie Couple. I'm Wendy.
I'm Dustin.
And here's our non-spoiler review for Glass. So Glass, as you know, it is the third installment, if you will, in the East Trail 177 trilogy directed by M Night Shyamalan. It stars Bruce Willis, James McAvoy, and Sam L. Jackson. We got to this review a little late because I really wanted to try something. So I've seen Unbreakable. And so I rewatched Unbreakable, watched Split before going into Glass. Dustin saw Unbreakable once upon a time.
I saw bits and pieces of Unbreakable. The whole thing is that before I actually got to see the whole movie, someone told me how it ends. And you know, M Night Shyamalan movies are kind of like all about the twist.
Yeah.
So I kind of had no motivation to go see it after that. But then I saw like little bits and pieces. I didn't see any of Split. And then I just decided to go in and see Glass.
Yeah, because I wanted to. I read in an interview somewhere where Shyamalan said that it is not necessary for you to see Unbreakable and Split prior to seeing Glass. And as I was watching it in the press screening, I was like, I feel like you really should watch the two. So think of this as an experiment, if you will, because Dustin didn't see Split before we went and saw this. And I was like, do you understand? So we're going to talk about the movie a little bit. If you guys follow me on Twitter, you already know that I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it by all means it is not his best work. I think one of his best work is still The Sixth Sense, which I really enjoyed, but it is not like, I'll compare it to The Happening. I didn't like The Happening at all.
Or like Airbender.
Yeah, but that doesn't count because that's not like a Shyamalan original.
True.
It's like a remake of a No Property, but he screwed that up too. So we didn't like those movies. This is definitely one of his better work in my opinion. What were your thoughts on the movie, especially going in not having seen Split at all?
Well, the whole thing is that I heard a lot of the bad and a lot of the good, and that the critics were kind of up in the air about it. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of going in with a clean slate. I hadn't really seen Unbreakable. I hadn't seen Split. So I was kind of like, okay, whatever. And I have to admit, it was overall, I wasn't like, oh my God, this is terrible. But I wasn't like, yeah, right, awesome, let's make another M Night Shyamalan trilogy kind of a thing. But I thought it was handled pretty well. I mean, overall, I did kind of like the storytelling. I did like bringing these three characters together. But I think the big flaw that this movie had was its suspension of disbelief in some moments. There were some things that, if you're making this kind of a superhero movie, you do need some of these kind of action sets or action scenes to happen. And it's obvious that they didn't have the budget to do that. Mm-hmm. There was also...
And that's okay.
Which is okay. Yeah, that's
to not have the budget,
fine.
I mean.
But I just think they made a lot of, well, this just happens like this. And you're like, that wouldn't work in the reality that you kind of created and built for us. And I do really see how seeing the previous movies would have really helped and maybe enriched it, but like he says, it's not 100% necessary. They do kind of fill you in the blanks and kind of fill in on the most parts on this. And I think it's easier to follow and easier to predict what's going to happen if you've seen the movies.
Well, I think it's when you sit down in a Shyamalan movie, I think almost everybody can always expect some sort of a twist.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of become what he's known for, which sometimes they're great and they're hits, and sometimes they're misses. But for this one, for me, and I think in part because I did see Unbreakable and Split right before going into seeing Glass, I was very excited, very looking forward. Everything was fresh in my mind. Mm-hmm. So I think I had an overall very positive experience. I think it's great that we got to see David Dunn on screen again after 19 years, to see Bruce Willis portray that character. Yeah. And especially seeing Split. Now, James McAvoy, his performance as Kevin and the Beast and Patricia and Hedwig is probably my favorite. Hedwig and Dennis are like the funniest ones. Mm-hmm. But there's 24 personalities living inside Kevin, and James McAvoy has to do a tremendous job of portraying each and every single one of them and have a clear definition so the audience knows who is speaking.
Yeah. Without going
at any given time, without having like to say I am so and so. Even
Yeah.
though they did that a little bit, but I think they did it more so to kind of call the character out. Like I would like to speak to Patricia now, but he was definitely my favorite part.
And honestly, he's also probably the biggest part in this. He is definitely by far the scene sealer. He has some of the coolest scenes in the movie. And I just really think they probably should have called it The Horde instead of calling it
The Horde
Glass.
instead of calling it Glass.
Honestly, Glass didn't have that big of a part in there.
He did have a bigger part, but James McAvoy definitely had more, I think.
Yeah.
And we don't want to give too much away, which is kind of why we're not talking details. But if you do want to get into the nitty-gritty of spoiler review for this movie, which we're about to film next, you should head over to our Patreon. Check that out. It's just the movie couple at Patreon, and we will get into it, because then we can talk about it. And like there's no spoiling for anybody, because it would be a spoiler review. Back to what you said about it, and I was saying that I do like this movie, but I also want to acknowledge some of its flaws. I think the first act was really strong. Mm-hmm. I think the second act was okay, and like the end of the second act and the beginning of the third act is kind of where it really dragged out. It got a little boring.
Yeah.
Things got a little convenient and predictable at points where you kind of really, and we'll save the nitty-gritty, pick it apart for our spoiler review, but there are times when I was watching, even the first time, and I was having fun watching the movie for the first time, I was like, but wait a minute, this is kind of convenient. And then they also used these characters, and they served as exhibitions. Expositions. I can't ever say that word.
Yeah, where it's kind of like, now we're just going to tell you how the story goes.
Yeah, and it's just, to me, that just felt, and you have these tremendous actors, like Anya Taylor-Joy,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, saying her line, and it's just a storytelling plot device. And I was like, no, I wanted to see them kind of get involved. And at one point, people were standing and talking. I was like, I was hoping for more. And then back to what you said about the stunts. We know what the Beast can do, what he's capable of. If you saw Split, and if you know David Dunn and you know the Beast, when they come together, we probably are expecting to see, lots of stunts. However, this is
a little bit more grandiose kind of effect of muscle, of show of strength.
Yeah, but I think this is also the time. So back then, when Unbreakable was made, it was almost 20 years ago. It was 19 years ago.
That's a long time.
And back then, we didn't have things like the Avengers. We didn't have things like Aquaman. So. And those kind of special effects. So, and also, you want to compare those. What I'm trying to say is, we now live in a world we're so lucky to be a comic book fan, and we get to see all these cool comic book movies and superheroes on television and in film, and some movies just, it can't be put on the same pedestal as that.
Now that we've seen superhero movies completely come to life, we're able to see Spider-Man swinging through the city, we're able to see awesome feats of strength, we're able to see some really cool special effects. Now we go back and we're kind of like, well, I wanted to see a little bit more.
But he still needed to keep it contained in that world that he created.
Yeah.
And with the budget. So overall, I had a really positive experience. I still feel like you should, not that you need to, but you should watch Unbreakable and Split prior to going in. If you don't want to watch Unbreakable, you don't want to commit yourself to both movies, watch Split at the very least for James McAvoy's performance. Watch Split, do yourself that favor.
I think, you'll get more out of the movie.
Yeah, I think so too. Do you want to go ahead and give your final thoughts and score?
Well, my final thoughts is that it's a pretty good movie. There's some slow parts, there's some parts that I was kind of like, I don't really agree with how they did that. There was also, I'll talk about it more in the spoilers, where I'm like, wait, what exactly is that supposed to do? And so there were some of those moments that really do kind of bother me in a movie. But overall, it's still entertaining. It still kind of has that superhero vibe to it, which I do like. So I'm going to give it a rent it.
Oh, very nice. I thought you were going to go lower. My score for this movie, I really liked it so much. And watching it a second time, yes, I noticed a little bit more of the flaws because I think I was looking for it.
Mm-hmm. You can catch them the second time.
Yeah, you because now you know how everything plays out. You can kind of like really sit back and look for things that you didn't quite see in the first one, or maybe you heard somebody say something about it. You're like, oh, I didn't catch that, and you're catching it the second time. But overall, I still really enjoyed it very much, and I'm going to give this movie a check it out. Well, you guys, that is it for this non-spoiler review. Go ahead and leave your comments in the comment section below. Let us know whether or not you will be seeing Glass in theaters and whether or not you have seen Unbreakable and Split. Do you think if you've seen Glass, do you think it's necessary to see those two films prior to seeing Glass? Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.